Hi, welcome to Political News in 5. Today is February 4th, 2018, and this is your weekly analysis of what happened in the world of politics. Now, the Coalition for Nigeria launched last week in Abuja on Wednesday, and by Thursday, former President Obasanjo had signed up to be a member. Now, apart from the stale faces which should make us worry about this coalition, there are two other things that gives us a sign that this movement is really more of the same. The first is that members are not supposed to pay anything. It's free, which means you have no idea who's financing and who is making the decisions for this Coalition for Nigeria. The second thing is that their membership recruitment policy is simple, just like the other parties. It's simply everyone is welcome. Murderers, rapists, scoundrels, even those who have 2.5 billion naira allegations of corruption against them, like Olagunsoye Oyinlola, who used to be a military governor and civilian governor for Osun State. So there we go, more of the same. Speaking of more of the same, PDP is abuzz with the thought that Saraki might join them. Now, why would PDP be happy? Because in the world of politics, as usual, when there's defections like this happening, it usually means that a party's strength is growing. So the same way APC was happy to get PDP members, the same way PDP will be happy to see APC people moving back. But what did Saraki say in 2014 when he was leaving PDP? He said he was leaving the party because they had disregard for rule of law, they lacked inclusivity, and they didn't care about the feelings of the people in the party, especially those in the state chapters. Speaking of which, Kwara PDP is very unhappy at the thought of Saraki moving back to PDP. Why? Because they know that as soon as Saraki moves, the structures of the party will be handed over to him, which means he will be making all the decisions. It's very likely that those people who have been managing the party for the last 4 years will find themselves in the wilderness or at the mercy of Saraki. So again, what does this tell us? When parties say politics is a game of numbers, why is the only numbers they're concerned about the faces of politicians, not even new politicians, just same old, same old? Why is the game of numbers not about the number of voters, the number of people with PVCs who've never voted? So I think that should give us something to think about. It has something to do with the way elections are won in Nigeria. Speaking of, PDP complained to a UN delegation last week that they were not confident that the current INEC will be able to hold free and fair elections in 2019. Now, I was tempted when I read this to think, you're only complaining because you know how much control incumbents have over INEC. But that said, I've also heard a bit of worry from other people who are saying they're not quite confident with the current leadership of INEC under Professor Mahmoud Yakub. Now, even though he seems to be a really sterling academic in terms of his credentials, sadly, in terms of execution and managing agencies where you can see that there's some excellence in execution, it's sadly lacking. So we should be hoping that somehow INEC will be able to close the loops with where elections are rigged, which is around the collation centers and in the announcement, the writing and announcement of results. Let's hope that INEC can close those gaps before the 2019 elections and during the 2019 elections. Speaking of, last week also, we had Bishop Kukah warning politicians about the poor leadership in the country and telling them that they were lucky that the military still had confidence in them. Now, the way I read that was almost as if the bishop was implying that if we didn't get our act together, if politicians didn't get their act together and provide better leadership, the military had some sort of right to come in and take over. I usually agree with the bishop, but in this I strongly disagree for two reasons. One, the truth is the military have never left. They're the ones still calling the shots. Not only are we using a constitution that they signed off on, which they like to mask as something that all Nigerians contributed to. The truth is that constitution is their constitution, it's not our constitution. Then there's also the fact that they always have a hand in selecting our leadership. It's not coincidence that out of the 19 years we've had since 1999, ex-military men have ruled for 11. So let's think about that. And the second thing is that military leadership is extremely unpopular around the world. So let's not give the military any ideas. They will not be welcome. Let's keep practicing our democracy. And now, last week I asked a question saying if there was no monthly allocation to states, how many people want to be governors? And many people came up with the answer, very few. Very few will want to do that work. So we have an answer there to think about in terms of where we should restructure next. And political zinger of the week goes to Senator Ben Bruce, who said last week on Twitter that If only the young people could put their passion and love of European football into Nigerian politics, we would be able to transfer the expensive player we bought in 2015, who has scored no goals, but lots of own goals. Ouch. Anyway, that's the news in 5. See you next week and have a great week ahead. Bye.